A village in the mountains has been constantly attacked by an S-rank Fenrir, so they spent all their savings hiring an SS-rank party to defeat it. The Flaming Dragon Fang party is filled with some of the strongest adventurers, each with their unique skills, except for Kurt. Kurt's main talent: doing chores. He's hiding behind a wall to avoid getting hurt when the Fenrir arrives and attacks him first. After being sent flying, the rest of the party gears up for battle. Guv orders Bandana to restrain the beast, and she ties it up, but the Fenrir breaks her back against a wall. But with Marfus around, she's healed in seconds and back on her feet. Using a tree as an anchor, she gives Guv a chance to aim for the Fenrir's head, and he sets it ablaze with his magic sword. The villagers are so thrilled that they prepare a feast, even though they're nearly broke. But Guv, he hates the peasant food and demands CT cook something better for him. Bandana asks for something special, since it's Kurt's last day cooking for them. Kurt, clueless, asks Guv why he's being fired. Guv explains that Kurt is useless in combat and they can only have 4 members, so they need someone stronger, like a mage. Kurt begs to stay, but Guv kicks him in the stomach and says that's final. The next day, Kurt leaves the village with no money and no direction. He ends up in the city of Sa, desperate and barely holding on to his last pennies. He finds a temp agency and gets an interview. His work history? He was part of the Flaming Dragon Fang but only did chores. Still, the party's name looks good on his resume. Kurt's aptitude test reveals that his combat skills are all rated G rank, meaning he's basically useless in a fight. But Kel, the receptionist, suggests he might have a hidden talent, like alchemy or blacksmithing, though the person who evaluates those skills is on vacation. Kurt needs work now, so Kel suggests he try lifting a sandbag. When he does, she sees he has the strength for construction work, and she helps him get a job at the city wall repair site. The Margrave is skeptical about Kurt, but he gives him a chance. Kurt gets to work mixing cement, and by the time the Margrave returns, Kurt has already finished a huge section of the wall. The Margrave is shocked but impressed. He tells Kurt he's done enough for the day and gives him a pouch of money. Kurt can't believe it, it's more than he ever made with the hero party. Over the next few days, Kurt works hard. But just when he thinks things are going great, the Margrave fires him, saying he's done enough. So much for his new job. Kurt asks why, and the Margrave explains that the wall repairs were meant to provide jobs for those in poverty. However, Kurt is too efficient, and if he keeps working, there will be no work left for anyone else. The Margrave isn't upset with Kurt, but based on his abilities, which seem to be at least double his rank, he would be better suited for work in the royal capital. He gives Kurt a lump sum as compensation for being let go and walks away. Kurt, misunderstanding the situation, thinks the Margrave fired him because he was a terrible worker. He heads back to the temp agency to tell Kel about being fired and that it will still take a few days before his trade attributes are appraised. Just then, they hear a commotion at the front desk, where a girl is trying to post a recruitment ad. The receptionist tells her no one would agree to work under the terrible conditions she's offering. Despite this, the girl insists, causing a disturbance. Kel steps in to investigate and learns that the girl wants to hire a miner to excavate an unexplored mountain but refuses to offer upfront payment, only promising payment if the excavation succeeds. Kel explains that no one would agree to these terms and suggests the girl find investors, but she can't because she has to pay taxes by the end of the week or risk losing the mine. Kurt overhears and, seeing an opportunity, volunteers, explaining that he has experience from helping with mining back in his village. Kel asks if he's sure about accepting, considering the risk of not getting paid. But before he can answer, the girl dismisses him, saying she initially hoped to hire a dwarf. However, since she can't afford the upfront payment for one, she reluctantly agrees to hire Kurt. As Kurt and the girl head out, Kel feels bad for him, thinking the job isn't worth his time. Her coworker interrupts to tell her that a bank transfer has arrived the remaining payment the Margrave promised for Kurt's work. Expecting around 50 silver, Kel is stunned when she sees it's actually 200 gold. She's so shocked by the amount that she trips over some sandbags, which her coworker explains are used to measure mana reserves. They usually don't react with regular people, but Kurt had struggled with them a few days ago, which makes Kel wonder if he's really just an ordinary kid. Meanwhile, Kurt and the girl, Alicia, head to her campsite. Kurt is surprised to see only one tent, and Alicia suggests they share it. Kurt, embarrassed, says he couldn't sleep next to her. Alicia gets upset, thinking Kurt is just flattering her, but when Kurt insists he genuinely thinks she's cute, she realizes he's sincere. She gives him a boiled potato for dinner, and Kurt, grateful since it's been a long time since anyone cooked for him, appreciates both the meal and her company. The next morning, Alicia wakes up to find Kurt sleeping under a tree. She feels bad about making him sleep outside, but then she notices that her jacket has been repaired. Kurt admits he fixed it, impressing her with his sewing skills. She wonders if he'll be good at mining, but it's too late to find someone else, so they get to work. Kurt asks Alicia if she has a plan for where to mine, but she was planning to dig randomly. Kurt tells her she'll never find anything that way and takes her to a section of the mountain, where he quickly locates a rock full of gemstones. Alicia is amazed that he found them so easily. In no time, Kurt identifies every gemstone in the area. She realizes that selling them could pay off her debt, but Kurt tells her she can't sell them as they are. Instead, he turns them into magic crystals, despite Alicia's concern that only a few mages in the kingdom can do so. Kurt, however, does it instantly, leaving her speechless. Once Kurt finishes, he allows Alicia to sell the crystals. She heads to the city's customs agency, where the agent questions her about where she got them. To avoid further questions, she flashes her royal family emblem, bluffing since she no longer works for them. The agent lets her pass, and she travels to the capital. There, she visits an old friend, Mimiko, who's shocked at the quality of the crystals, realizing they contain 10 times the usual amount of mana. Mimiko offers Alicia 500 gold for them. Before she leaves, Mimiko asks Alicia to promise not to sell such powerful crystals anywhere else and to give her the name of the creator. Alicia refuses to share Kurt's name without his permission. Mimiko, a court mage, insists but ultimately can't get Alicia to comply. She asks Alicia to make sure Kurt doesn't go to another nation and offers him a title of count and access to the Royal Research Lab if he agrees to work for the royal family. Alicia returns to the mountain, only to find that Kurt has built an entire house in the time she was gone. Setting her shock aside, Alicia tells Kurt that a friend of hers wants to hire him as a royal mage. If he takes the job, he'll basically become nobility fancy title, big paycheck, sweet benefits. Kurt's not buying it. He thinks it's too good to be true, but Alicia assures him it's a legit offer. When she asks what he wants to do, Kurt says he's gonna pass. Alicia is stunned. Who turns down being a royal mage? And honestly, same, because his reason is dumb. He says he doesn't want to be in a position above others and still wants to go crawling back to the Flaming Dragon Guild, even if he has to beg them to take him back as their errand boy. Speaking of Flaming Dragon, they're currently getting absolutely wrecked by a tree monster. Gulliver's fire magic isn't working, so he asks Marlipist for healing. She's been trying, but her magic's on the fritz too. He turns to the new guy for backup, but guess what? He doesn't know fire magic either. That was supposed to be Gulliver's job. The team is a hot mess without Kurt around, and only Bandon seems to notice the whole squad is falling apart. Back with Kurt, he's still mining gems for Alicia. He tells her he found a good vein yesterday, and he's eager to dig more. She appreciates the enthusiasm but worries he might be overworking himself. He reassures her that he got a solid 6 hours of sleep. That blows Alicia's mind. She starts doing the math on how he managed to build a whole house and still sleep. But Kurt thinks she's mad about him sleeping too much and apologizes for being lazy. Alicia really needs to sit this man down and explain just how ridiculous his strength is, but she has no idea where to start. They head out to do more mining. Kurt leads her to a forest spot and says she should find good gems here, just don't dig past 500 meters, as if someone could accidentally do that. He then heads off to another site, promising to check in later. Ulicia spends the whole day digging and eventually finds a massive topaz gem. She'd been giving Kurt all the profits before since he found most of the gems, but this one's hers so she can finally pay her taxes. She could ask Kurt to turn it into a magic gem and make even more money, but she doesn't want to take advantage of his kindness. Curious how Kurt's doing, she checks on him and sure enough, he's gone way overboard again. He built an entire tunnel system in just 8 hours. When he pops out, he says he only found a little of the gem he was looking for. Everything else, just worthless rocks he plans to toss. Ulicia peeks into the cart and sees rocks that are way too shiny to be junk. She asks what they are, and Kurt casually says, "Oh, just mithril." Turns out, in his village, mithril was so common they used to throw it away. Ulicia is speechless. She then asks what gem he was looking for if mithril is considered trash. Kurt pulls out a small rock and says he was hunting for orichalcum. You know, the metal of the gods, worth millions per gram? Yeah, he found a box of it. Ulicia didn't even know you could find orichalcum around here. Kurt just shrugs and says, "You can mine it anywhere, you just have to dig 8 kilometers. At that point, Ulicia calls it a day. Her topaz covers her taxes, so her contract with Kurt is over. But poor Kurt still thinks he needs a new job. No one's told him about the mountain of gold in his bank account. On his way to the job agency, he runs into Bandana. He's happy to see her and asks why she's around. She tells him she's no longer with Flaming Dragon. Turns out, after that tree monster disaster, Golova went to a 5-star restaurant to cheer himself up, but every bite reminded him that compared to Kurt's cooking, everything else tastes like reheated cardboard. Golova loses his temper big time, wrecks the restaurant, and storms off without paying. In a sketchy alley, Bandana catches up with him and is like, "Dude, you went way too far." But Golova's too busy rage craving good food to care. He tells Bandana to go drag Kurt back even if she has to break his bones. Yeah, Golova's spiraling. Bandana decides not to argue with Crazy Town. Instead, she snatches his teleportation crystal and runs off. Just as she leaves, she sees the city guards heading toward Golova. Without that crystal, he's toast. Bandana finds Kurt and breaks the news well, some of it about the group disbanding. Kurt's pretty bummed because he was hoping to rejoin, still clueless about how much of a jerk Golova really was. Bandana, who never actually cared about Golova in the first place, she was just spying on Kurt, can't believe Kurt still wants to go back. Since Kurt's clearly job hunting, Bandana has an idea. A friend of hers, an elite Italier master, a big deal, like Viscount level big, needs help in her workshop. Kurt says he's in, so Bandana hands him a map and sends him on his merry way. Kurt finds the place, but it looks more like a normal house. He knocks, and a tiny elf girl named Michelle answers. Turns out she's not the master, just the assistant. She's thrilled to have help, though, and drags him into a kitchen that smells like a sea monster's armpit. She apologizes things have been hectic and runs off, leaving Kurt to clean. As Kurt finishes cleaning the kitchen, he realizes Michelle never told him what to do next. So, he starts wandering the hallways to look for her. He went into a room looking for Michelle. He met a girl with a strange curse. He asked if he could touch it, and when he did, he realized she couldn't feel anything anymore. He suspected the curse was slowly consuming her whole body. Concerned, he told her he'd make some food for her, since she needed it, and went back to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Ulicia is chatting with Mimiko about some magic materials Kurt found. Even without converting them to crystals, they're worth 50,000 gold coins. Ulicia's like, "This kid is either gonna be kidnapped or assassinated." Mimiko agrees. Ulicia wants to turn Kurt into an Italier master himself, so he has clout and protection, and she even plans to be his bodyguard. Problem is Kurt is too humble and oblivious to realize how insanely gifted he is. Back in the workshop, Kurt finishes cooking porridge for the cursed girl. Michelle and the real Italier master, Alia, come up from the basement and are stunned by the sparkling clean kitchen. Even more stunned when they find Kurt cooking. Alia's like, "Wait, which girl did you meet exactly?" Kurt explains and promises to keep it a secret. She pays him generously for his help and tells him to come back tomorrow. Later, Alia brings the porridge to the girl, reminding her she's supposed to stay hidden. But the girl, whose name is says Kurt seemed trustworthy, and besides, she's tired of not trusting anyone. She takes a bite, and then collapses. Alia freaks out, thinking Kurt poisoned her, and prepares to track him down, but surprise. Suddenly gets up and says she feels amazing. The curse is gone. Alia is completely baffled. Curses like that aren't supposed to break from a bowl of porridge. At the same time, the secret group who cursed Li is holding an emergency meeting because someone just broke their assassination curse. Plan B, something much more deadly. Later that night, Alia and Li head to Mimiko's place. Li reveals her face and Mimiko immediately recognizes her as the third princess. Turns out the curse was a hit attempt, likely meant to spark a war, since Li is the only child born from the king and a royal from a rival kingdom. Mimiko is relieved she's okay, but shocked the curse is broken. Li tells her it wasn't her doing, it was Kurt. And the moment they hear his name, both Mimiko and Ulija go full panic mode.